Well, thank you all for coming. We are here at the city's Office of Emergency Management, and once again, I wanted to thank Pamela Mitchell for signing for us today. Purpose this morning is to update you on the city's preparation for Hurricane Sandy. I have talked to Governor Cuomo this morning, and our staffs have spent a lot of time with his staff and the MTA staff to make sure that we're all coordinated, and I'm happy to say that I've never seen a coordination that I thought worked as well. Everybody understands that we all have responsibilities, and the cooperation that we've gotten from the state is everything we'd asked for. And I also had a conversation with the governor volunteering our services for after we're out of danger, because there's likely to be a lot of damage if the hurricane continues to stall upstate and inland. And so our police, fire, sanitation services perhaps will be able to help other parts of the state and the region that are less fortunate than we are. Last night we said this was a serious and dangerous storm. Nothing has changed there. The latest forecasts from the National Weather Service are for roughly the path and magnitude of a storm that we talked about yesterday. What they have changed is the magnitude of the storm surge that we are expecting in the coastal areas. The surge, particularly at high tides, and there's a high tide roughly at every 12 hours, so tomorrow morning, tonight, tomorrow morning, tomorrow night, next morning, that's when the tide is in, and if the wind is going in the right direction, it brings an enormous amount of water in and can flood low-lying areas. And so that's what we're talking about. And what they've said is the surge will be a few feet more than what they predicted yesterday. They now are talking about a surge from 6 to 11 feet. The gale force winds are going to start late this afternoon and growing overnight. The worst of the storm will still be on Monday night, and that's the worst of the surge. But tides overnight this night will lead to flooding in low-lying coastal areas, those that we designate as Zone A. There'll be a period tomorrow at low tide when there won't be a surge, but then the high tide, there won't be a lot of water, but then the big one will be coming actually tomorrow night. Having said that, the one tonight can do plenty of damage. So I don't want anybody to go to bed tonight thinking that they can spend tomorrow worrying about the night after. We've got to take some preparations today. And we anticipate that the surge will hit a lot of low-lying areas and that the possibility of flooding will continue into Tuesday afternoon. In light of these conditions, I'm going to sign an executive order mandating evacuation of Zone A areas. I'm also ordering that all of the city's public schools be closed on Monday. Now, first, as to the evacuation zone, let me stress that we are ordering this evacuation for the safety of the approximately 375,000 people who live in these areas. If you live in these areas, you should leave them this afternoon. Low-lying areas, Zone A, include Coney Island, Manhattan Beach, and Red Hook, and other areas along the East River in Brooklyn. All of the Rockaways and also Hamilton Beach and Broad Channel in Queens, almost all of the coastal areas of Staten Island, City Island, a small patch of Throgs Neck, and other patches of the South Bronx are also part of Zone A, and Battery Park City and stretches of the West Side waterfront and of the Lower East Side and East Village in Manhattan. If you want to find out, do you live in Zone A? It's very simple. Just call 311 or go to the city's website at nyc.gov. Type in your address or give your address to the operator, and they will tell you if you are in Zone A. If you live in one of the 26 public housing developments in Zone A, be aware that all elevators there will shut down at 7 p.m. tonight. So it really is important that you leave this afternoon. Also, the MTA has announced that they will start shutting down service. Subways starting at 7 tonight, buses at 9 tonight. So if you need mass transit to leave Zone A, there really is a timeline when if you don't get there before they stop, you're going to be have to find another ways to get out. Let me stress, if you don't evacuate, you're just putting your own life in. You're not just putting your own life in danger. You are also endangering the lives of our first responders who may have to come in and rescue you. And we hope you don't face those kinds of dire situations, but you could. My concern is for all the people, and particularly for the first responders who are willing to put their lives on the line. But there's no reason to have extra risks just because some people said, well, maybe I'll wait it out, and then later on change their mind. If you do live in Zone A, your first option should be to seek shelter in the homes of family or friends in the city outside of Zone A during the storm. And you have all day to do that. As of 9 a.m. this morning, we've also opened 72 evacuation centers in public schools around the city. You can once again find their locations by calling 311 or going to nyc.gov. If you live in Zone A and do not have a safe place to stay with friends or family out of Zone A, these shelters that I've talked about, the 72, provide a place to sleep, the meals, and there will be room for your pets, so take your pets along. If you're going to use one of these shelters, we strongly urge you to get there via public transportation. All of these shelters do have at least one entrance usable for wheelchairs, but they might not have parking, so if you want to drive, there might not be a place to put your cars. If you require further information, you can call 311 or visit the Office of Emergency Management website or the website of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, which will also provide information about accessible transportation. But I want to reiterate that this evacuation is mandatory. It is for your own safety. If you cannot evacuate yourself and need assistance, call 311 and we will be sure to make sure somebody comes and helps you. Now, we will not be, in general, evacuating patients in the hospitals and chronic care facilities in Zone A, although we have evacuated, or in the process of evacuating, a small hospital in downtown Manhattan. The reason for all of this is that these shelters have facilities, they have backup generators, and it's dangerous to move people when they're elderly. So on balance, we think they'll be fine. Every one of the shelters has been contacted more than once, and we're satisfied that it's an intelligent decision to leave them in place. The teams from the city's health department are at these facilities making sure that the emergency generators are working and that they have backup fuel supplies. And yesterday, these facilities were also ordered to increase staffing immediately, and they have. Patients are also being moved to higher floors where they should be safer in the case of flooding, and all of them have discharged patients that don't really require their services to reduce the number of people they have to take care of. Earlier this morning, Governor Cuomo and the MTA announced that they have begun to put in effect their contingency plan that they described Saturday. As I said before, they'll be closing down the city transit and suburban commuter rail systems tonight. Last subway runs will be at 7. Last bus runs will be at 9. In the meantime, they are adding extra staff during today to be able to provide more transportation for people who want to leave Zone A. They do have to make sure that their equipment doesn't get damaged. Otherwise, we would not have subway trains when this is over or buses when it's over. So I think they are taking the kind of appropriate action that they should. That does put some pressure on everybody to use their facilities, however, while they're still functioning. Let me repeat what I said earlier. This is a serious and dangerous storm. For those in Zone A, evacuation is mandatory, in or out of Zone A during the storm. However, the safest place to be is indoors. If you live in a high-rise and lose power, you may lose water as well. So as I suggested yesterday, fill a few pots of water and leave them on the sideboard so you can drink, use them for other wash. During the height of the storm, use staircases. Avoid using elevators. You never know when power would go out. You don't want to be stuck in an elevator. And if you are, obviously our fire department will come and rescue you, but they've got enough to do. So if we can avoid calling on them for those kinds of things, they'll be there for real emergencies. Stay away from windows and close your drapes. As we said yesterday, flying objects can go right through a window. Now, gale force winds are something that almost all buildings in the city are built to handle, but there are old buildings where sometimes pieces of the building fly off. We think the construction sites are all tied down, and that's not as much of a worry as some of the older buildings. But If you don't go outside and then you don't go near your windows, you don't run the risk of getting hit by flying objects. As I said, the public schools will be closed on Monday. We'll make a decision Monday afternoon, evening about Tuesday. Our hope is that we can be open on Tuesday, but we will close the schools on Monday. Teachers who work in schools where we have open shelters have volunteered to report to their shelters for serving the public, and that's great. We will need them. Street cleaning rules and parking meter rules are suspended citywide on Monday, but city offices are open, and city employees should make every effort to report to their jobs on Monday morning. Now, we will, if we have any more updates, put them out later in the day. We will try to notify everybody in Zone A. It's part of it, depending on the fourth estate, to do that. Part of it, we will have signs up at intersections, and police department loudspeakers from cars will go around and try to notify everybody. NYCHA's been knocking on all the doors in their Zone A facilities, and hopefully people will understand it's in their interest to get out. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm just going to tough it out. If down the road you can't tough it out and we have to come in with our first responders saving you, those people can't. Those first responders put their lives in danger and aren't available for true emergencies. Now's the time to take this kind of sensible precautions that we said yesterday, even outside of Zone A. Make sure you have drinking water, make sure storm drains and gutters are clear of debris, secure outdoor items that might blow away in high winds. City parks and marinas, incidentally, will be closed as of 5 p.m. today until further notice. So please, and some people in marinas want to ride this out. This is a dangerous storm, and that's just not the smartest thing to do. If you're going anywhere by public transportation today, just plan to complete your trip by 7 p.m. This is critical. If you live in Zone A and must evacuate, do not wait until the last minute to get public transportation. No system can accommodate every single person if they all show up at the same time. That's not what they're designed to do. So it would make a lot of sense to leave a little earlier. An extra couple of hours would probably make your evacuation trip a lot easier, and it certainly will help everybody else. Stay inside as much as possible after sunset tonight. There's no reason why you can't go to the store today to get the kind of stuff that you need, or even be a little bit outside. But just remember, as these winds blow and grow during the day, and they'll grow to gale force winds sometime tonight, the chances of a branch coming down or something are great. And we've been through a lot in the last 11 years. We've had experience with hurricanes, we've had experience with a transit strike and a blackout and more. So we know what to do. I am completely confident that all of the city agencies have made all the preparations that are appropriate, that they're working together. We'll certainly get through this, but we'd like to get through this with nobody getting hurt, and that's a lot more important than property damage. My guess is that with an exception of some of the flooded areas, there won't be a lot of property damage, but that's not our first priority. Our first priority is keeping everybody safe, and because of the surge, we think it's appropriate that I sign an order mandating evacuation from Zone A. We all pull together in tough times. I'm sure your friends and families outside of Zone A would just love to have you for dinner tonight and to stay over. And if you have to stay on a couch, it might not be the most convenient thing in the world, or even if you have to sleep with a blanket on the floor, but it's a lot better than running risks of having people get hurt or worse. We have an effective plan to keep New Yorkers safe and to recover from this as quickly as possible, and we will do that. Let me, before we take questions, just try to summarize in Spanish. Estamos pidiendo una evacuación para todas las personas que viven en la zona A, para sobre si está en una zona de evacuación, visite al 9yc.gov o llame al 311. El sistema de transportación pública va a cerrar esta noche a partir de las 7 en la tarde. Tome precauciones, se preparará una bolsa de emergencias. Los albergues de emergencia ya están abiertos para saber dónde está el albergue más cerca llame al 311. Las escuelas públicas estarán cerradas mañana, lunes, y tenga cuidado. Es peligroso esta tormenta. We'll be happy to take some questions, sir.
Mr. Mayor, what about the people who just won't leave? Are they going to be arrested? Or?
They're not going to get arrested, but they are being, I would argue, very selfish. They're not only endangering their own lives, they're endangering the lives of others, because in an emergency, we aren't going to leave them to die. We're going to come in and save them. But we have to do that with people who's putting their own lives at danger and are not available to save others. If there were a fire and a fire truck's there or police officers there and there's an emergency elsewhere, they can't be two places at the same time. Yes.
You mentioned that obviously they want to leave by 7 o'clock in order to take advantage of mass transportation, but is there a mandatory time when they have to be out?
I don't know what the time is in the, it's 7 p.m. exactly, 7 p.m. Yeah, yes, sir.
You spoke of a hospital in Lower Manhattan that's being...
Yeah, it's a small hospital, has 100 people because they don't have any backup facilities.
What hospital is that?
New York downtown.
New York downtown.
They just lost the power.
Yeah, if they don't have any backup facilities for power, and if they lost power, yes, sir.
Are you repositioning like emergency vehicles within the evacuation zones?
We put some extra fire trucks on Staten Island in case the Verrazano were closed, but we don't think that's going to happen. There's one firehouse on City Island where we think it's high enough, but there's one or two that are reasonably low. But no, we have our police officers and ambulances and fire apparatus spread around the city normally anyways. We'll actually obviously put more in Zone A because we want to assist with the evacuation. Yes, Miss?
Mr. Mayor, of course you have to wait until the storm gets close enough to make this determination, but because it's a sort of small window of time, what about people who might not be watching TV? Are there people going through these areas?
Well, it's kind of hard to believe. Yes, we have police officers in their cars with their loudspeakers warning and that sort of thing. You know, it is, I can tell, as anybody, all of us knows, it takes days and trillions of dollars and repetitive things to get messages out to everybody. That's just the real world. Yes, Miss?
Mr. Mayor, concerns about flooding at the Ground Zero construction site?
No, that's the construction sites get flooded. There's no damage done. You pump it out. They're underwater a lot. That's not an issue. It's the real issue is subway trains or Metro North or Long Island Railroad trains where if they get flooded, the equipment is damaged and you can't use it. The road beds, generally will drain and you may not be able to use them for a few hours or a day, but they're fine. But if you were to lose the flood a subway car, its engines don't work and then it can be out of commission for a very long time.
Are you expecting power outages in Zone A?
Zone A, those places where they have overhead lines, it's not the flooding that's going to take them out. It is the winds, and that was going to be there whether we had a surge or not. The Con Ed's one vulnerability to water is the steam system, and I think are in the process of closing some of that down. It turns out that a hot steam pipe, if there's cold water outside, it damages the whole system. Yes, sir.
What about construction sites for the wind?
I went over that yesterday. We've been to every single construction site, every single crane. I think we're a long ways from where we were 10 years ago. Today, the contractors understand their obligations. A lot of these big buildings have cocoons in this day and age, which is a ways to lock in all of the construction materials, and we don't expect anything. But having said that, if, God forbid, something blows off, if you're not outside, you don't have to worry about it. Yes, Miss?
I wondered if you could elaborate on what you're hearing about the extent of likely flooding of the subway and also of the underground electrical infrastructure.
If in Lower Manhattan some of the water really goes in, Con Ed will have to repair it if it's damaged. They don't know that. The steam system is the one that they are going to shut down as a prophylactic measure. In terms of the tunnels, the only tunnel that is really close that would have some potential would be the Hugh Carey tunnel from Lower Manhattan over to Brooklyn, and that's something we'll watch very carefully.
Yeah. You have this small hospital that's being evacuated. If I'm not mistaken, NYU that whole complex, is that in?
That's,
Zone
no,
A?
well, I think it actually might be in Zone A, but it's pretty high, and they have facilities, they have backup, and that's not, to move people and everything is dangerous in its own right. So if you don't have to do it, you don't want to. They can move people up one floor, and if they have backup facilities, they'll be fine. They've already all discharged elective patients, and I don't assume they won't schedule anything other than emergency operations or anything. Yes, Miss?
Mayor, can you talk about your decision to have city workers try to come to work? On one hand, you're telling people, stay home if you don't have to go out.
But we need the city workers. The city workers are here to serve the public. That's a job we all have, and we all recognize that. We all take great pride in our dedication to serving the public, and this is something that we're going to have to do. It may be inconvenient and hopefully is not dangerous, but city workers are here to help others, and I think they all understand that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Alternate side of street parking suspended.
Alternate side of the street parking is suspended, yes.
I'm curious what your reaction is to the National Hurricane Center's rhetoric. They say life-threatening storm surge. Do you have a...
Well, everybody's trying to protect themselves, and I think a storm surge is life-threatening. But if you take precautions, it's not going to threaten your life. One of the things that we worry about is young kids going out and surfing. You just can't do that. If you do it, you're putting the people who are going to have to save your life or try to save your life, their lives at risk as well. You had another question, sorry.
What would you say to people about the comparison between this and Irene?
Oh, I don't know how you compare one to another. Irene was the danger was more rain and winds along with the surge. Here, it's more surge than anything else. And that's why, other than common sense, when there's big winds, don't go outside, don't go into the parks. The rest of the city, we don't think there's any reason for people to evacuate. It's just the low-lying areas. And let me stress one more time, the forecast really hasn't changed for winds or rain or path or how long this is going to be around. It is the surge, which they think might be a couple of feet higher than what they had predicted yesterday. First we got that was at early this morning, and right away we put in preparations and started discussing what we're going to do. We wanted to make sure that we coordinated with the state and the governor and the MTA. We did that. And hopefully it won't be anywhere near as bad. In terms of what you're likely to experience is today, maybe some showers in the afternoon, but the winds are going to keep growing and growing, and tonight it's going to be very windy. Tomorrow there will be a surge tonight. It won't be as bad as tomorrow night's surge. Tomorrow you're going to wake up and the weather's going to be a lot worse, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and it all should clear out by Tuesday. But having said that, upstate and inland, that's where the storm is predicted to go and to stall. And there, it'll be a lot of rain for 2 or 3 days, and their rivers can't handle it, and they can do a lot of damage. Trees come down. And as you saw in Irene, the people that left New York City to go upstate to get away from the storm, in fact, went right into where the real damage was. We'll take the last question in the back.
During Irene, you did a sort of special zone program for cabs. Anything to do something similar, or are you just...
We just want people out of Zone A, and it's not going to last that long. And if there's nobody there, there's no cabs, no reason to have cabs there. Regular rates for cabs, and you should be able to get around tomorrow. A lot of people, most people, will go to work tomorrow. It's people who have children who they normally would send to school while they go to work are going to have to make the adjustments. It's unfortunate. It's one of the reasons we don't like to cancel school. The kids need the education, but also for a lot of parents, they would have to miss a day's worth of work. But when there's no mass transit and the weather's as bad as it's going to be, we don't want to put children's lives at risk. Once again, let me just reiterate, it is we've taken the precautions. We need the cooperation of the public. Please listen to the evacuation order. You can find out Zone A from nyc.gov or 311. But if you live in a low-lying area, just go visit somebody who's happy to have you. And if not, we have 72 shelters, and you can get that from 311 and nyc.gov. And hopefully Tuesday morning we can all relive and say, here's what I did when we had the surge. Everybody will have a good story to tell, but we'll all be safe. Thank you very much.